Most city skylines are made up of skyscrapers, but in Boulder, Colorado, it's mountain peaks. The Boulder Skyline Traverse covers 5 peaks that make up the backdrop of the town. If you hike it one way, it's a challenging 18-mile hike with 6,100 feet of elevation gain and amazing scenery. We began the traverse by dropping one car at our final trailhead near the base of Mt.Sanitas, our final peak. We then drove to our starting trailhead, South Mesa, and geared up for the day ahead. Josh and I had taken on this hike once before as a final training session before we started the Continental Divide Trail in 2022. That time, we did it in March, which meant the sun rose as we started the hike and there was lots of snow still on the trail. I was grateful for sunlight and dry trail this go around. The first stretch of this hike is a long climb, from 5,600 feet at the parking lot to over 8,500 at the top of South Boulder Peak. If you don't feel like doing the math, that's 3,000 feet gained in about 3.6 miles. It's quite the warm-up. The climb up to South Boulder takes you from nicely maintained gravel trails to a steep rocky slog through the trees and eventually to a tiny bit of scrambling on the summit. Views of the Front Range dominate the west, while relatively flat land sprawls east. Seeing Boulder and even further in the distance, Denver, from this view highlights the stark relief of the foothills. It's like there's nothing but flat for miles and miles and miles, and then bam, you're 3,000 feet above it all on the first few peaks of the Rockies. The hike from South Boulder to Bear Peak is short. The 2 peaks are connected by a saddle that suffered a fire several years ago and is now fairly exposed. The top of Bear Peak is even more scrambly than the top of South Boulder, which reminds me of my aversion to exposure. I don't think I'll ever get very into climbing. Going down the back of Bear Peak toward Green Mountain, there's more evidence of the fire, and I remember post-holing through this area 2 years ago. The top of Green Mountain is crowded, which always seems to be the case. Emboldened chipmunks are evidence of the peak's popularity. It starts to rain, which also seems to always happen when I'm on Green Mountain, but since I put on my rain jacket, it stopped almost immediately. We make our way toward Flagstaff and cross Flagstaff Road several times. As we approach Flagstaff, the all-trails route doesn't technically hit the peak, so a few of us diverge to make sure we tag it. The detour, I remember, also puts us closer to a pit toilet, which I took advantage of 2 years ago and planned to do again. The summit of Flagstaff is rather anticlimactic, which is a nice break before our final summit, Mt.Sanitas. We continued to descend toward Boulder and toward Centennial Trailhead, where we dropped a cart that morning. I know the final push to Sanitas will be a challenge after an already long day, and when we spot it in the distance, it looks even more daunting than I remember. We pass the car where Josh decides to call it a day, and the girls pushed on for another 1,300 feet of gain in under 2 miles. Sanitas has several false summits, which feel particularly cruel at the end of the traverse. I did feel much better than I remembered feeling last time I did the Boulder Skyline Traverse, and that was encouraging. I also remembered seeing a woman doing run repeats of Sanitas, which at the time felt completely unfathomable. And while it's still outside of my physical skill set, my time in Colorado since then has made it seem less extreme. At the summit, we celebrated and sat down to take in our last view of Boulder, Denver, and beyond. Ooh, good work, ladies. Woo. Then it was time to turn around and return to the car after a successful day on the Boulder Skyline Traverse. How was it?
Good, I took a nap.
Nice.
I believe that.
And I sat in the air conditioning.
How was the rest of the hike?
It was great. It was great to do it with friends and bring my friends together.
Hell yeah.
That banana did it for me. Oh, yeah. It was great. Great hike.
Nice. Celia?
Just got through the Appalachians, and that was probably super hard.
You just got through the Appalachians?
Well, think about it. I mean, back in the covered wagons, going across the Midwest, they probably were like, that was a